Okay, we're live.
Okay. Well, thank you for everybody for coming and welcome, and we'll call the meeting to order. It is 6:32, and the first item is the agenda. Are there any amendments or additions to the amendment?
No, Madam Chair, there are no additions to the agenda.
Okay. I had a couple quick questions. Can I ask them now?
Sure, about the agenda itself.
Well, no, just wondering when we can move the meetings back to inside chambers.
Sure, yeah, I can provide an update on that. So I had received an update from Legislative Services. The intent is to continue on virtually. This has been working very, very well, I think, for everybody on the commission to meet virtually rather than back in person in terms of timing. And so the intent is to continue meeting virtually and holding the meetings virtually through the fall and through December, and then we will reevaluate in January. So that is the intent to keep this virtually and meet this way until then.
Okay, thank you. And then the second quick question is about the current timing to take the land use bylaw to council.
Sure, yeah. So the land use bylaw is going to be finalized. It will be finalized by the end of this month, at the latest at the first week in September, after which we will provide it publicly. So we'll post it on the Let's Talk Cochrane. We'll provide copies to whomever would like to have a copy for their review. There will be a review period from September through to January, up until we present it formally to council for their consideration. So the intent then is that version of the land use bylaw will be presented to council come January 2022.
Okay. Thank you. Thanks for letting me ask questions. So as there are no amendments or changes to the agenda, can I have a motion to approve the agendas presented?
Motion to approve the agendas.
Okay, thank you. All in favor? Opposed? No, carried. Okay, and then the next item is the council update. So I thought there was no council members here, but to my surprise, there is. So is there a council update for this evening?
There actually really isn't one anyway, so we can just carry on because we haven't been in any sort of council meetings over the past month. So yeah, if we can just carry on and skip it and carry on to regular discussion.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. The next item is the adoption of the minutes from July 21st, 2021. Are there any errors or omissions that anyone noted? If not, can I have a motion to approve the minutes as circulated?
Madam Chair, if I may, before the motion is made and voted upon, so I would just like to raise, I guess I don't really want to call it an issue, but I just would like to raise an item from last meeting, and that was related to the comments on the bylaw, the amendment to the Heritage Hills Neighborhood Plan. So I just wanted to take a minute to talk about process. Now the comments have been included in the minutes here, and so I would just like to firstly draw attention to those comments to make sure that the Cochrane Planning Commission agrees that those are the comments to be provided to council at the September 13th council meeting. So that's the first item, and you will do that through the adoption of the minutes. And secondly is just to talk about the process. For comments to be provided to council, CPC as a body needs to come to an agreement or agree on the comments to be provided to council for their consideration on that bylaw. And so it's also very important to have that agreement and consensus in the meeting itself. And so moving forward, what I would suggest, and we've done this in the past, is to take the time to have the discussion and then take time at the end of the discussion to confirm and write down. I know Councillor Federico, I think you at one point opened up your laptop and actually wrote them out. And then sent them on, read them out so that everybody confirmed them, and then sent those on to administration. And so I think that process went really well. And I would just make a suggestion that the next time that we bring a bylaw forward for the Planning Commission's consideration and comment, that process be followed.
Okay, thank you. So just
I'm happy to answer any questions or clarification if anybody has.
thank you, Mr. Weldon. So just a question. So in that circumstance, can we ask for a, I can't remember what it's called right now, but we can just stop the meeting and stop the live streaming for a few minutes while we work through what our comments are, or what is the correct process?
Yeah, so I think what you're referring to is going in camera, which means that the Planning Commission could meet outside of the public view. I would not suggest that because the Planning Commission is a public committee of council, and any discussion and any comments that come out of that discussion should be made in the public forum.
Okay, thank you for your clarification. Okay, so so noted. I really appreciate the guidance and the recommended, or I guess review of the process going forward, because it did work that very well in the past.
Maybe we could have a couple of people just assigned, you know, to make sure that they are the ones that will be taking notes, right, during the discussion, because if one of us is not here, whatever, is not present in that meeting, then maybe somebody else, it goes to somebody else, right? So maybe we could figure that out behind the scene before our next meeting, is to figure out which people will take minutes, just if we have to make some comments. Because I do agree, it was easier when we did it that way, and then it's fresh in the mind too, right? And not coming back and looking at something 4 weeks later and saying, well, that sounded kind of remotely what we thought it was going to be, right? So I have to.
Exactly. I agree. I think that's a good idea. Okay. Thank you. Any other comments or questions with respect to this process?
I'd just like to add that I guess when we are making comments or we want it to formally be included, I guess we should be announcing that we are making a formal declaration. Sometimes we're into discussions and we're looking at various options, but we don't really clamp down and say, this is really the position we're taking, and therefore this is what we actually want in the minutes or in the comments to a particular motion that's being presented. That's it.
Well, and I think the other thing to note is that although we don't need to be all agreed, but we do need to agree that it's okay to present those comments to council. So we don't personally have to agree with what is being said, but we do have to agree that that can be promoted. Does that make sense to everyone? Okay, anything else that you want to add, Mr. Riley, before we wrap this up?
No, that was all. Thank you very much for that.
Okay, do we have a motion to approve the minutes of July 21st, or have we already done that now?
I'd like to make a motion to approve the minutes from the last meeting.
Okay, all in favor? And opposed? It is carried unanimously. Okay, the next item is the Development Officer's Report for the month of July 2021.
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. The Development Officer's Report has been included in your agenda. There were 13 development permits that were processed and approved in July. Those have been included in your agenda package and have been included, and I'm just getting to the specific pages. So on page 10, 11 of your agenda package, a comparison to both 2020 and 2019. We are currently at, in 2021, 147 development permit applications. Last year at this time, as of August 12th, we had 100 DP applications, and in 2019, we had 122. So comparison last year, we've increased by 47% from last year, and about 17% from 2019. Compliances, as you can see, as of August 12, 2021, we're at 549, and they still continue to come in at the same pace. This time last year, we were at 274. This is a little over double, as you can see, 104% increase from last year. And it's from 2019, it's 57% increase from 2019 as well. So, but the development permits from July have been included in the agenda package, and I'm happy to answer any questions that you may have.
Okay, thank you very much, Mr. Weldon. I'm just wondering if you could maybe comment what you attribute the increase in both the development permits and the compliance applications to?
Yeah, I think for the development permits, it's you know, just an indication that there is a lot of development that is taking place. Development permits is reflective of the desire of the community and the landowners and businesses within Cochrane to develop. And I just think that it's a good sign, I think, from overall from an economic perspective, and that yeah, things are happening in Cochrane from a development point of view. And for the compliances are related directly to housing sales and the sale of a house. They are required by a lender to confirm compliance that the parcel and that the dwelling complies with the Town of Cochrane land use bylaw. And so when you see this many compliances, it's reflected to the housing market and the number of sales that are occurring within the town. And as you can see, there are a lot of sales. So it is still very much hot. I'm trying to find a different word, but a very strong housing market and sales within Cochrane currently.
Well, thank you. I also see that Councillor Fideko has a question.
Sure.
One quick question. I noticed that there's zip signs, magnet signs. Can you maybe tell us a little bit about what all these signs are doing up? And I imagine the magnet signs, I think, are maybe for the food trucks. Maybe that's one of them, but I was curious as to what all the signs were for.
Sure. So I'll start with the first one, the zip signs. Those are fascia signs. There's 7 fascia signs. Those are permanent signs. They are located on 5th Avenue, and those signs are for, and Adam, correct me if I'm wrong, but those are for the old Canadian Tire building that is currently getting renovated and redeveloped. The magnet signs.
No, sorry. It's for a different site. It's for, Scotiabank.
Oh, it's for the Scotiabank. Oh, okay. And that's on the Scotiabank that's happening on 5th Avenue. Yeah. Okay. I stand corrected. Thank you, Adam. And the other signs, the magnet signs, those are portable limited term. So those are the portable signs that are temporary. And so those are the typical portable signs that you see around the community, and normally those are to promote some kind of sale or service that's being provided by a business. And so those are temporary signs. And there's two locations, one on River Heights Drive, and the other one is on Sunset Drive. So by the trading post.
Perfect. Thank you. Thanks for the update.
Okay, are there any other questions, comments with respect to the development officer's report? If there are no further questions, may I have a motion to approve the development officer's report as presented?
I'll put that motion forward.
Thank you. All in favor? And opposed? It is carried. Okay, the next item on the agenda is DP 2021-088, an office building with variances. And the presenter is Mr. Nordquist.
All right, good evening. So I'm presenting DP 2021-008. So this is for a new office with variances. All right, so the applicant is proposing to demolish an existing dwelling along Center Avenue and replace it with a new office building. This proposal requires a couple variances to help both with the parking requirement and an issue with the sightline triangle along Center Avenue and William Street. So the location in question is 208 Center Avenue, and it's currently zoned CR, which is our commercial mixed use district. There is an existing single detached dwelling and a detached garage on this property. In this district, offices are a permitted use, but due to the two variances required, it is being referred to CPC tonight. So just a brief planning evaluation. So this application is in line with our municipal development plan as we, again, try and encourage more growth within our downtown, as well as using our limited resources such as land in an efficient way, such as redeveloping property close to our commercial downtown core. This is also in line with our commercial sustainability plan, where we are looking to bolster our local economy. This proposal is also in line with the Lower East Neighborhood Plan, which identifies Center Avenue as a location for mixed-use commercial as well as high-density residential when it's street-orientated. This proposal is also in line with the Western Heritage Design Guidelines. Though it's not in our historic downtown core, it does take measures to ensure that it's engaging the streetscape with pedestrian-oriented design, as well as including elements within the design of the building itself to be in line with their Western heritage. So under the regulations for the CR district, the front and side yard setback are not restricted. So in this case, the proposed building will be quite close to Center Avenue, as well as there will be a rear yard setback separating this office building from the other residential properties along William Street. The building will be 2 stories, which is well within our maximum building height of 8 stories for the town of Cochrane, as well as they're meeting their landscaping requirements, as well as planting additional trees for those that would be removed with this development. So here's the site plan itself. As you can see, the building will be along that property line along Center Street on the west side there, whereas the parking lot will be on the east side, separating the building from the other residential use. The main entrance will be orientated to that street corner, ensuring that it is accessible for pedestrians. The office building is 2 stories. You can see the floor plan here for The main story as well as the second story floor plan is in the agenda package. So one of the variances required is to the parking. As an office building, the parking is required at 1 stall per 37 meters square. The total floor area will be 366.27 meters square, which requires a total of 10 stalls. The applicant is proposing 10 stalls on site. They're being divided up between 4 of our regular sized stalls, 5 of our compact stalls, which are about 30 centimeters more narrow than our regular stalls, and 1 barrier-free stall. So the variance is actually towards our requirement for compact stalls. Under our current bylaw, only 20% of the required parking can be dedicated as compact stalls. So in this case, that would mean a normal would be 2 stalls. The applicant is proposing to increase this to 5 stalls, so 50% of the parking on site. This is due to the proposed use being an office, and that predominantly these stalls will be used by the employees, which the compact stalls will be well suited to the employee needs. The second variance is to the sight line triangle. Within our bylaw, we require that a clear sight line is provided along an intersection. Generally, we measure this as a 7.6 meter from the corner of the lot to create that triangle. The applicant is proposing to reduce this by 42% to have a triangle that is 4.36 meters. And that is to basically maximize the usable space on this parcel, as well as accommodating other factors such as landscaping and parking. A sightline triangle will still be maintained as there is a sizable boulevard. So when we look at the actual, if you were to measure from the intersection rather than the corner of the property, the triangle is still 7.74 meters. And during our review, we had no concerns with the proposal in that case. For reference, these are the building elevations. As mentioned, it is going to be primarily directed towards that corner as the main entrance. So we'll be engaging with Center Avenue as commuters are coming into town, turning off the highway. So administration is recommending that the Cochrane Planning Commission approve development permit 2021-088 for the office with variances subject to the conditions in the report. And I'm available for any questions you may have.
Okay, thank you for the report, Mr. Nordquist. As there are 2 variances, I'm going to suggest that in our discussion that we focus on one variance and then the other. So I can suggest that we start with our conversation with respect to the sight line triangle. Does anyone have any questions or comments that they would like to contribute to that variance?
I have one question on that one. Does that variance, is that calculated as the way Center Street is now or the way it's going to be when they're done construction?
All right, so through the chair, it is calculated based on how it currently is. However, this application has been referred to our capital projects team as well as the project manager for the Center Avenue project. There was no concerns in that case, with one of the main elements being that in its ultimate configurations, this intersection will be a right turn only. So the vehicles from William Street can only turn right onto Center Avenue.
Thank you.
Okay, anyone else? I just have one question, Mr. Nordquist. I'm wondering why the developer is putting the building so close to Center Avenue. Is there not a way to move it back, to have a little side yard setback so it's not so close to Center Avenue?
So through the chair, that option was explored and there was multiple configurations. However, every proposal would reduce either the amount, well, it would reduce the amount of parking as well as the amount of landscaping provided on site. This is probably the most efficient configuration that was found by the applicant, as well as when we look at the ultimate goal for Center Avenue, how it is desirable to have these commercial buildings actually engaging with the streetscape. So we want them to be very much pedestrian orientated. The idea that the entrance is right there so you can walk in off the street, whereas a more traditional development may see the parking be flipped and creating kind of a gray and really not aesthetically pleasing side yard.
Okay, thank you. A second question, just for validation, I think you have already mentioned this. This building is intended to be an office building only, that there will be no commercial practice on the main floor. It's all office.
Yes, it is a single occupant that will be in office use.
Okay, thank you. So are there any other questions or comments with respect to the sightline variance? If there are no others, can I suggest that CPC has no issue or approves, or is in support of the variance as presented? Would anyone else like to suggest other wording? Okay, so Lisa, have you taken that wording down, that CPC approves the variances on sight lines?
Yes, that's understood.
Thank you. Okay, so the second issue is with respect to the variance on the number of parking stalls. Does anyone have any comments or questions with respect to that variance as presented?
I'd like to start the discussion. I do have some concern with the amount of parking that's available on this site, predominantly because I know we go by square footage of parking requirement, but this building looks like it has 14 stalls for offices. It's got a waiting room for 10 people. Obviously, they must be getting a lot of visitors. Now, I don't see any visitors parking here. So there is concern with particularly that the side street here to Center Street will probably be used for any visitors that are going to come to this particular office building. I don't know what the intent of this office is, but I do have a concern about the amount of stalls that are being suggested for this particular site.
I could second that concern. I have 3 boardrooms. Just curious as to how many people they're expecting to have at one time. I definitely have the same concern.
Okay, anyone else? Councilor Fideko? Mr. Weldon has a comment.
I do, Madam Chair. So just maybe for some clarity, I do appreciate the comments that have been made, but for clarity that the parking requirement, and again, Adam, please correct me if I'm wrong, but the parking requirement is met in terms of the number of stalls. However, the variance is to the small car provision in our bylaw that allows for up to 20% maximum. So more compact stalls are being proposed for the site, not a decrease in the number of stalls, which actually meets the land use bylaw.
Thank you, Mr. Weldon, for your clarification. Councillor Fideko has a question.
Sorry, I kind of disappeared there offline and I came back in, so I apologize if this was asked already. When it comes to the stalls, what happens if all of a sudden, this office building, it isn't successful? I know that it was kind of mentioned that the parking stalls fit the employees' vehicles or kind of what they needed when this becomes perhaps something else. I guess I did hear you just mention, Mr. Weldon, that it still meets the number of stalls. I guess, though, we aren't concerned whether or not the next possible
Eleven participants. Maybe he's coming back on.
Oh.
Here he is. Sorry, Mr. Nordquist, we lost you momentarily.
Yeah, my Zoom just disconnected. So I'll maybe just, I'm not sure how much was caught, but I'll just restart that answer. So basically, the variance would go with land if this is approved. So as long as it's remaining as an office, they could use the compact stalls. However, if a change of use was ever proposed to something else, we would then reevaluate the parking requirement.
Okay, I mean, I guess I have some concerns is that somebody's coming forward with an idea that fits the amount of people, the vehicles that are particularly working there right now, but what happens even though if that office changes to a different office, we don't really know what vehicles those people are going to have, right? So again, I just have some concerns and I get it. I don't want to necessarily hold it up on this, but we end up always kind of back around a parking issue and I just become a stickler on creating more problems that we don't necessarily need to have, right? I mean, most of the stalls are compact. Well, I mean, that fits a very small vehicle, but all of a sudden you have 7, F-150s parking there and they all work at the office building. I mean, there's really nothing that we can do. And I do appreciate the fact that you said that, if the land, if it's something totally different, then they can come back, but who's to say who's parking there, even if it's a different office, right? So I'll wait to hear what everybody else on the commission wants to say, but that is my concern is that we end up creating problems that we know will probably exist in the future. It's just how long.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Fideko. I'd like to hear from Mr. Parsons.
Sorry, I got kicked off of that one too and it reconnected for me. Must have been a Zoom thing. I don't have any concerns with this one.
Okay, thank you. Ms. Locke?
Can somebody explain to me what the definition of a small car or small vehicle is?
Yeah, for sure. So through the chair, a compact stall is just simply a smaller stall in our bylaw. We have it as a predefined size as an option to help commercial businesses meet their parking requirement. So in this case, it is, I believe the minimum requirement is 2.4 by 5.5 meters, whereas our typical parking stall is 2.75 by 6 meters. For the site, the stalls will still be 6 meters deep, but they're going to be narrower in width. So they will be measuring 2.45 meters instead of the 2.75.
Okay, thanks.
Okay. So, Mr. Norquist, I had a question with respect to when you're working with the developer here, I guess they had a choice of having a variance with the number of to meet the number of parking stalls, although increase and have the variance on the number of narrow ones, or to request a variance on the number of stalls altogether. Can you share with me how the decision was made to come this way versus just reducing the number of stalls?
Yeah, so through the chair, it is still desirable for that by the applicant to have these parking stalls. They still want to meet that requirement. However, they did through consultation with their client for this building, it was decided that the best fit for them would be moving to smaller stalls rather than less.
Okay. And do you happen to know whether or not, Mr. Pathrath said there's no visitor parking, so are they expecting a number of visitors or not? Do you know?
As far as I know, it will be primarily for employees. I don't have the exact split that they were thinking of. However, typically for our office use, we don't require that visitor parking be marked in this case. We're assuming that the use is going to be primarily, office focused for the employees. As shown on the second floor drawing in your in the application package, it is primarily office space on the second floor, whereas the main floor is for reception or meeting space.
Okay,
And
thank
Madam Chair, if I can, I'd just like to add to that as well. Our parking regulations are parking ratios based on square footage. And so those ratios for these types of uses take into account a comprehensive activity on those sites. So we don't have a separate employee or we don't have a separate requirement for visitors that may be coming to the site. That is included in that parking ratio as part of the regulation.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Weldon. And I was just going to follow up, so you just answered my question, because I think adding to the question by Councillor Federico, so with the change of use, it would still be that property, that building would still require 10 parking stalls, no matter what the usage. Is that correct?
Not necessarily. If it's the same office business, then yes, and it meets the use definition for an office, then they would not require a development permit to change an office business to another office business. However, if it is a change of use to another commercial use that is listed in the district, then they would be required to go through the development permit process.
Okay, so just to clarify, but would they, because the square footage stays the same, the number of parking stalls would stay the same? Okay, that's what I wanted to clarify. So, okay. Any other questions, comments, discussion with respect to the second part, the variance on to the change or increase of the number of small parking stalls from 2 to 5?
Can I ask one more question, Deb?
Absolutely.
Will this actually matter? So I know in the land use bylaw review right now, there's been talk about allowing kind of businesses or commercial businesses to be able to decide, how many parking stalls they feel fit or required for their business. Does this fall into that, or is this kind of different, being that it's an office building? Is it something that might be a moot point anyways as we go forward, if the land use bylaw is approved to allow businesses decide what they need actually for parking anyways?
Adam, I can take this question. So through the chair to Councillor Federico, We are evaluating, I'll just clarify this, we are evaluating the application with the regulations that are in place in our land use bylaw. But given the current version and proposal of our land use bylaw in terms of the parking, you are correct. The approach is that the landowner or the applicant themselves would be proposing the amount of parking that is appropriate for the site itself moving forward. And if that does pass and is adopted in the new land use bylaw, then that's how the parking would be determined moving forward.
Thanks. Yeah, I guess we're kind of like the chicken and the egg, right? This just happened before it's passed, and they need to have a decision obviously made right now versus waiting out 6 months to figure out if it's going to be approved. Okay, thank you for that clarification.
Okay, thank you.
I have one last question for Adam. So Adam, the residents of that side street, have they made any input or comments about this additional parking or additional volume and people that will be visiting this particular site?
So through the chair, a sign was posted on site, our development notification sign, during the circulation period, and we received no responses from adjacent landowners. And then if this is approved, because there is a variance, there will be a notification sent out to adjacent landowners as well.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you.
I guess, Madam Chairperson, my position is that we approve this particular variance since it's within the parking guidelines. Though I think we are going to have issues with parking on that side street, but our hands are tied because the regulations are what they are, which are under review. But at this moment in time, the variance of going from 2 to 5 smaller stalls does not really impact the overall problem of the amount of parking that's really needed for a site that has that amount of office space and that amount of potential visitors to 3 massive boardrooms. So I guess my final say is that I would approve going ahead with this project, but I still will have concerns about the parking on the streets. Thank you.
Okay, so noted and so heard. Are you putting the motion forward that we approve DP 2021-088?
I do so. I put forth that motion to approve development permit 21-022.
Okay. Any further questions or comments before we go to a vote? No? Okay. Do you have a question, Ms. Moore? No? Okay. So all in favor? All in favor? I can't see everybody, so.
It does appear to be unanimous, Madam Chair.
Okay, I can't see everyone for some reason or other. Okay, so the motion is carried. Okay. The next item on the agenda is DP 2021-101 and is with respect to street-oriented townhomes in Heritage Rise. They're on Heritage Rise.
Hello, so I'll be presenting this DP as well. So this is for a 3-unit street-oriented townhome. So the applicant is proposing to build this 3-unit townhome on a currently vacant lot that was designated as a potential townhome site in the Heritage Hills Stage 2 neighborhood plan. So the site is number 4, number 8, and number 12 Heritage Rise, shown highlighted in red. It is currently zoned as R2 residential, single and 2 dwelling district, where street-oriented townhomes are a discretionary use. And that is why this application is being referred to CPC tonight. As stated, this is part of the Heritage Hills Stage 2 neighborhood plan, and I'll be touching on that a bit more in a bit. So in general, in our planning evaluation, this application does meet a couple specific policies, partially with the design of these street-orientated townhomes. They're going for what is called a garden home style lot. So they're promoting a new kind of vibrant style of housing that will be actively engaging in these amenities, where a typical layout may have a rear yard facing this park space directly behind them. This was highlighted in the Heritage Hill Stage 2 neighborhood plan when it was adopted. So under section 3.7, it was labeled as an innovation as one of the housing options within the plan area. And these garden lots were specifically talked about to create a unique relationship between these homes and the park space behind them. So as you'll see later in the design, it will be a front drive product. However, the rear yards are designed to look more like the front of the building. So so rather than engaging the street, they're going to be engaging the park space. Access will still be provided to the front of the buildings through a walkway within the park. So when we reviewed the land use bylaw regulations for this application, it met all the requirements in the R2 district for street orientated townhomes, including the setbacks, building height, lot coverage, and parking requirements. So this is just showing the site plan where it is, as mentioned, is going to be a front drive product where each unit will have one parking stall on the driveway and one within an attached garage. There will be access through a door there, as well as on the park side of this development. There will be decks and porches and additional amenity space to really make that the focus of this development. So here are the building elevations. As mentioned, the street side will look pretty typical of any other front drive product. But as mentioned, you can see from the rear elevation facing the park, there was extra steps to make sure that it is a more inviting and active frontage. So administration is recommending option 1, that the Cochrane Planning Commission approve development permit 2021-101 for the street oriented townhome subject to the conditions listed in the report. And I'm available for any questions.
Okay, thank you very much for your report, Mr. Nordquist. Okay, council members, or sorry, CPC members, does anyone have any questions or comments?
I have a question for Mr. Weldon on this. Last time we reviewed this as a neighborhood plan, we have townhomes on the west of the park and townhomes on the north of the park, all garden, what they call garden lots. And because this is a discretionary use, does this mean that we are going to have to review every development permit for all those townhomes around the park as individuals, instead of giving it a blanket approval?
Through the chair to Mr. Paffrath, yes, that is correct. You recognize this obviously from the discussion at our last meeting. The lots that front on from the north that front onto the park is subject to a neighborhood plan amendment. But the townhomes, yes, when they are applied for, the Cochrane Planning Commission will be the development authority.
Okay. As they come, we'll take them.
Thank you. Councilor Fideko has a question.
Yeah, that was a great question, actually. And kind of following that, I mean, if we approve this lot, I guess I get concerned about, does it just become a blanketed response for all the lots then? Or, are we able to approve these and then we say, hey, you know what, we don't like these? Like, obviously there were certain questions raised about parking and things with some of the units, obviously not necessarily these ones in particular, but are we kind of laying groundwork that if we approve these, that this is just going to happen, it's just going to be a green light all the way? I guess I'm just a little bit concerned about that.
Yes, so I understand your concern about this. The applications, when you review them, this doesn't set a precedent. Each application is reviewed on its own and in accordance with its own merit and its compliance with the regulations as well as the neighborhood plan. So I guess one of the attributes of this application is its conformance with the neighborhood plan that has been approved by council. These sites were approved as with the intent to create townhomes here. And so there is an alignment through our planning process. However, it does still provide the opportunity if they are a discretionary use for the Cochrane Planning Commission to consider that and to consider any issues that may come from the application that would result in a refusal of the application.
Perfect. Thank you. That's just what I wanted to hear. Thanks so much.
Okay, thank you. Ms. Moore has a question.
Yeah, so I just have a question about landscaping and rules that might apply to these lots right here facing the park. So I know that like in my neighborhood, everybody has to have at least one tree in front of their house, and fences in the backyard can only be of certain heights at different areas, points in the yard. So in this situation, do they have plans for a landscaping plan for that block of homes? So would a resident, say in the center unit, be able to put a fence up around the quote front facing the park, blocking off their property? Just the reason why I ask is because it would mean that it's not really conducive to the engagement or openness of the front yard onto the park thing.
Yes, through the chair, they are still required to provide landscaping. As this is a R2 district, they are only required to provide one tree per front yard. And in this case, we do need to interpret that as the heritage rise side of the building. So there will be 3 trees as shown on the plan here. The applicant is also proposing to build a 1.2 meter black metal fence just along that pathway there, as they wanted something to delineate what is private and public space. However, should a owner in the future choose to alter that, they would still be constrained by our typical requirements for a fence, which would be 2 meters tall. However, regardless of how they choose to approach their fence, part of the intent of this proposal and garden lots in general is that there is going to be that feeling that it's the front of the building with larger picture windows, and that there is going to be more activity there. So it's going to be less of a dead space between the building, the sidewalk, and the park itself.
Okay. I think from a visual perspective, and given the demographics of typical demographics that would be attracted to townhome living, I think that we could end up with, and when I say demographics, I mean younger families with children and things like that. Just the front yard's going to end up just basically being a backyard. And to be honest with you, if that's what somebody chooses, I don't really have a problem with it, but I just think that it's worth saying that creating this kind of new innovative approach might not be as successful as they plan. That's it, just a comment.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Moore. Any comments from Ms. Locke? No? Mr. Parsons?
Oh, thank you. I'm good.
No? I had just a question for clarification and then a comment. On the picture, I think it's page 35 of our package, Mr. Nordquist, you said, maybe I heard you incorrectly, so I'm just checking, that you said that there would be kind of a front veranda on the back of the building, like a veranda that would be typically seen on the front of the building, on the back of the building. I just don't see it in the plan here. Did I misinterpret what you had said with respect to verandas?
No, so there will be porches. So on the elevations here, if you look at the bottom elevation, that's going to be the side facing the park itself. And you can kind of see again, it's a porch or a veranda, as you would
I see.
may call it, as well as a balcony on the second level there. You can see then on the site plan, for the 2 units on that would be the north side, you can see the outline and it's labeled as deck. And on the end unit there, the deck is actually set off to the side a bit and wraps around the building.
Okay. That's very little, so thank you for telling me. My comment was with respect to parking. And so the way that this is developed, and I'm assuming that it's because of the narrow lot size, that we're putting in tandem parking. So you've got 1 parking space in the garage and 1 parking space on the parking pad. I am just wondering what the research is showing with respect to tandem parking and whether or not I guess it's sellable or a well-accepted type of product for the public.
So I can only really comment to as what our land use bylaw requires right now, as it's mainly up to the applicant to decide the product that they're best able to sell. And right now we only require 2 parking stalls for street-orientated or per unit of a street-orientated townhome. Where typically it could be a front product like this, where tandem is one of the ways that they can meet it and is permitted under our bylaw.
Thank you, Mr. Nordquist. It was just a comment. I know in the area that I live in, we have some of that similar issue. And so I don't think that it's ideal. However, it is compliant with the current land use bylaw. Are there any other questions or comments? If not, may I have a motion with respect to DP 2021-101?
I thought George already did that. I could be wrong though.
Did you do that, George? Mr. Patrick? I think that was the last one.
It was in a round, yeah, it was the last one, but I might as well also do this one. I put forth a motion that CPC approve development permit 21-101 as presented by the planning.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Pathrath. Any other comments? Okay, if there are no other comments, we can go to a vote. All in favor? And again, I can't see everyone, so. Mr. Pathrath? In favor? He's the only one I can see.
We're unanimous.
We're unanimous this again. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so the application is approved. The next one is DP 2021-105. It's respect to an addition of a screen room with variance to the rear yard setback.
So good evening, Madam Chair and members of the Planning Commission. Am I sharing my screen? Can you guys see that?
I can share your screen. Are you trying to move to the next slide?
Oh, we got it. So the development permit being presented is for an addition to a single detached dwelling with variance to the rear yard setback located at 229 Willow Park. The property is zoned R2, residential single and two dwelling district, where single detached dwellings is listed as a permitted use. The applicant is proposing a screen room on the existing rear deck, which is considered an addition to the single detached dwelling. The existing deck complies with the rear yard setback prescribed in the R2 district. However, since the screen room constitutes an addition to the principal dwelling, it must meet the minimum yard prescribed setbacks of the building. The addition for the screen room meets the requirements of the land use bylaw, except for the rear yard setback, which requires a 22% variance. The slide before you shows the elevation drawings for the screen rooms proposed in the rear yard. Here are the site photos of the front and rear of the property. There were no concerns received from the circulation to internal departments, and no comments or concerns were received from adjacent landowners. Planning has reviewed the application and determined, except for the rear yard setback, the application meets all the requirements according to the land use bylaw and is in alignment with the town's planning policies. As the application will not unduly interfere with the amenities of the neighborhood, nor interfere with or affect the use, enjoyment, or value of the neighboring properties, administration is recommending option 1 with the conditions outlined in your report. And that concludes my presentation. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Okay, thank you very much, Ms. Cosby. Does anyone have any questions or comments? Okay, I see a hand raised by Councillor Fideko.
I'm just going to put on the floor that we approve option 1, that the Cochrane Planning Commission approved development permit 2021-105 for an addition of a screen room to the single detached dwelling with a rear yard setback variance lot 13, block 10, plan 161, 109, 1098, 229 Willow Park, subject to the following conditions that are outlaid in our report.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions or comments before we go to a vote? Okay, no questions or comments. May we vote then? All in favor? And opposed? It's carried unanimously. Thank you, Ms. Cosby. The next one is GP 2021-105, which is a similar variance to a rear yard setback. And so I look forward to your presentation.
All right. So we have another application that is for a variance to the rear yard setback. So this one development permit is for a semi-detached dwelling with a variance to the rear yard setback located at 111 Riviera Court. The property is zoned R2 residential single and two dwelling district, where semi-detached dwellings is listed as a permitted use. The applicant is proposing a screen room on the existing rear deck, which is considered an addition to the semi-detached dwelling. The existing deck complies with the rear yard setback prescribed in the R2 district. However, since the screen room constitutes an addition to the principal dwelling, it must meet the rear yard prescribed setbacks of the building. The addition for the screen room meets the requirements of the land use bylaw, except for the rear yard setback, which requires a 40% variance. The slide before you are the elevation drawings for the screen room proposed in the rear yard. Here are the photos showing the developed area and location of the property and a rear picture of the existing deck. There were no concerns received from the circulation to internal departments, and no comments or concerns were received from adjacent landowners. Planning has reviewed the application and determined, except for the rear yard setback, the application meets all the requirements according to the land use bylaw and is in alignment with the town's planning policies. As the application will not unduly interfere with the amenities of the neighborhood, nor interfere with or affect the use, enjoyment, or value of the neighboring properties, administration is recommending option 1 with the conditions outlined in your report. And that concludes my presentation.
Again, thank you, Ms. Cosby. As this application is very similar to the previous one, I believe we could probably suggest we go directly to a motion. Is someone willing to present a motion with respect to this development of application?
I can do that one. Put forward a motion to accept option 1 for development permit 2021-110.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Parsons. Any questions or comments before we go to a vote? I don't see any hands or anything in the chat. So can we move to a vote? All in favor? Opposed? It is carried unanimously. Okay, and the next item is DP 2021-111, which is in addition to a screen room with variance to a rear yard setback. Ms. Cosby.
Yes, so I'm not going to go through this entire PowerPoint presentation because it is exactly the same one as the one you just approved, except for this one here is actually to the neighbor to the west where the star is at. This one right here. So planning, and this one has got a 37% variance of what they're asking for a rear yard setback. Again, there was no comments or concerns from internal circulation or from the adjacent landowners. This is the rear property of the location. So like I said, it's with this little highlighted part here. The one you just approved was on the other side of that duplex adjacent to here. So planning is recommending that the Cochrane Planning Commission approve DP 2021-111 for the addition of the screen room with the variance to the rear yard setback at 107 Riviera Court with the recommended conditions in your report.
Okay, thank you again, Ms. Cosby. Okay. Considering this is very similar to the one previously, can we go straight to a motion?
I can do that one too.
Okay, you're on a roll.
On a roll. I put forward a motion to accept DP 2021-111, option 1.
Okay, any questions, comments, concerns? If not, can we go to a vote? All in favor? Opposed? It is carried unanimously. Okay, and the final DP application for this evening, DP 2021-117, is for childcare services in Bow Ridge.
Yes, so I'm up for that one as well. So the application
On a roll.
is for childcare services listed as a discretionary use in the local commercial district located at Bay 206 1 Bow Ridge Road. The site plan shows the location of the tenant bay for the childcare services and a street view picture of the building. This is the floor plan for the tenant bay area. The application meets the requirements of the land use bylaw prescribed for childcare services in relation to parking and distance to the entrance of the door. Planning has received the application reviewed the application and has concluded it meets all the requirements according to the land use bylaw and is in alignment with the town's planning policies. Administration is in support of the childcare services application and is recommending option 1 with the conditions outlined in your report. And I would be happy to answer any questions.
Okay, thank you very much, Ms. Cosby. We have a question from Councillor Federico.
Ms. Cosby, weren't they already there? I thought TLC was already there, or are they just switching locations within that parcel?
So through the chair, I'm not aware that they were already there. They did supply an application there. So my understanding is they may be moving because it's a new application.
Okay, thanks. I have no problem with this at all. So thank you.
Okay, would you like to put a motion on the floor?
I can. Hang on. Let me roll back up. Hang on. I got to get back to the actual. Hang on. Oh God, now I'm like way beyond. Hang on.
It is on page 54.
I just want to get the right number.
It's 2021-1.
There we go.
Oh, I'm on the wrong page.
Yeah,
Sorry.
you're on the right page. 54 isn't it, but hang on, we'll get there.
Page 63.
Perfect, thank you. As I scroll through, I have 2 different laptops going.
Yeah, me too.
All right, I'm gonna move option 1 that we approve. That the Cochrane Planning Commission approves development permit 2021-117 for childcare services at Block 13, Plan 20-021-3594 at 206 Wumbo Ridge Road, subject to the following conditions that are outlined in our report. Sorry for that, guys.
No problem. Thank you. Okay, any questions or comments with respect to this development application? If not, let's move to a vote. All in favor? Opposed? It is carried unanimously.
Thank you.
Okay, the next meeting is Wednesday, September 15th at 2021. We will continue to be using this virtual application and may have a motion to conclude the meeting.
Motion to conclude the meeting.
Thank you, Ms. Moore.
I'll second that.
Second, not required, but thank you. All right. Well, good evening to everyone. And thank you very much for coming, attending, participating, and for all your comments.